If the Buffalo Bills are going to win the Super Bowl this year, they need to go get Chris Olave right now. Stevie Johnson, I am not sure you agree with me on this one, though.
Yeah, I can't say I agree with you on that, but the Buffalo Bills do need to play their cards right and feed Cook and Khalil. Feed Cook and Khalil. AK.
I'm sure that Josh Allen is watching the Kansas City Chiefs these days and thinking, I could really use a Xavier Worthy or a Rashee Rice or a Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, because it looks like a barren wasteland at receiver and tight end compared to what Kansas City has right now.
This is Broken Table. Hein, Stevie, AK. Stevie Johnson doubling up as Carrot Top to start this one off with the props, going full prop comic, and I love it. But, AK, I think you nailed it. The Chiefs look dangerous. We'll get into them a little later. But Josh Allen has to be envious in looking at all of those receivers he has at his disposal.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And the envy may linger for a while, but I am certain, whether it's Chris Olave or somebody else, that Brandon Beane's going to be going out there and trying to acquire somebody who can represent a downfield threat, because that is a huge void in what the Buffalo Bills have offensively. It's just a matter of who. Could it be Olave? Sure. Of course, the salary cap, the draft capital you have to give up to bring in someone like Olave, but it goes without saying, Buffalo needs some help at receiver.
And Stevie, why are you against Olave?
Well, I feel like I'm against Olave because we basically have an Olave, just a taller version of him in Josh Palmer. And I feel like if Josh isn't completely injured, he can still do all the things that Olave does. Another thing is he doesn't command the ball. He doesn't demand, changing the offense up. So that's my thing. I think we need more of an alpha mentality type receiver, and I don't think Olave is the one for us.
Okay, so I gave you a little bit of homework, Stevie. I gave you a couple guys we wanted to look at, Olave being one of them. What about Rashid Shaheed, which another Saint? He's gives you that deep ball threat since 2023, most receptions, over 50 air yards in the NFL. Averages 11.6 targeted air yards this season. And one thing that this Bills offense needs more than anything, he really thrives against man coverage. So deep threat, good against man coverage. How do you feel about Shaheed?
You know what? I really like Shaheed. I actually got to work with him in college along with Taron Johnson. So that would be pretty cool for them to link back up as Weber State guys. However, again, I feel like Shaheed is also a version of a Josh Palmer. If we can get the ball out more and get those situations, maybe Josh will edge a little bit closer to Shaheed. Right now, Shaheed is leading. However, what is it doing for his team? So again, I don't see the authority that's needed for a receiver in those two guys. However, they are really good receivers.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a sticky situation because, of course, we remember the Buffalo Bills go out and acquire Amari Cooper last year, give up a third-round pick, and he did literally nothing for Buffalo. Was barely playing.
He had one big game.
He had one big game, was a ghost in the playoffs, and I'm sure Beane and company maybe a little bit gun-shy to make a move like that to give up draft capital for a guy who might not fit. But I look at the Miami Dolphins. I mean, a guy like Jalen Waddle, their season is over. Really, that franchise should just fold considering what we're seeing from Buffalo and New England here. How is Miami ever going to compete in the AFC East? It seems almost unfathomable at this point. But Jalen Waddle, he kind of represents everything you would possibly want if you're the Buffalo Bills. He can catch short passes. You could use him in different gadget formations, and certainly the deep ball. He's one of the fastest players in the NFL. It's just a matter of what it would cost and if Miami would actually be willing to trade him. But can I interest you in some Jalen Waddle, Stevie?
Yeah, actually, that was some more of my homework that I had to look up. And Jalen Waddle, actually, he does fit the mold. 50, 60% he fits the mold to me because, one, he has the presence and the authority of a top pick. He's had the history of catching short passes, which is what we need, that authority for a receiver to tell Josh, hey, I need it right here, closer, to you instead of just waiting downfield. And he also has the threat to go downfield. So that's what I do like about Waddle. I would like to see a higher, alpha guy, but Waddle, he does fit the mold for me right now. If we did make that play, I wouldn't be upset at it.
The one thing for me with Waddle, primarily, he does most of his best work against zone, but think back to that Thursday nighter. anytime the Dolphins had a big third down, Trey White was on him man-to-man, and he burned Trey White and would get open. So, yes, while primarily he is better against zone, I do trust him as a man beater, which is what I think this receiving core needs more than anything. However, it's the contract, and that's the tricky thing. You can make it work for this year, and I think next year it's manageable, but that's going to be tricky to work given their current cap situation.
Yeah, and clearly, I don't know how eager Miami would be to help out a division rival.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, it did happen with Cleveland and Cincinnati. It's like, oh, you want Joe Flacco? No problem. Well, you can have him. So, but I don't think this is the same situation. Jalen Waddle is a much younger player, much younger than Joe Flacco, and he's still very much just at the beginning of his prime. So, would Miami be amenable to trading Buffalo, their number one receiver, in the middle of the season? I'm skeptical, but if the price is right, I guess anything's possible.
Well, also too, if you're Miami though, isn't it just like, I know we're going to talk other positions too, but like I know Kyle Duggar is a safety for the Pats who's on the market, and I don't think the Pats would trade him to Buffalo within the division because they're competing.
Yes.
Miami's not competing for anything right now. So like if I'm a GM, I'm maybe a little more open to a trade within the division if I'm just going to rip this thing down to the studs anyways. But at the time we're taping this, things could change. Mike McDaniels could be out of a job by the time this thing goes live. Like,
probably will be, yes.
So if Miami's going to rip it down like that, then I don't think it's as big of a deal. But there's a reason these trades within the division don't happen. One more receiver I'll throw at you though, Stevie, and that's Jacoby Myers. We know he's unhappy in Vegas, requested a trade before the season started. Final year of a 3-year, $33 million deal, so expiring contract, price isn't that bad. Probably get him for a 4th rounder, so it's not going to cost much. How are you feeling about Jacoby Myers?
Jacoby Myers is another good receiver. He's sure-handed. He catches the ball. He gets in his places when he needs to. However, he doesn't demand the ball. He doesn't have that authority for me. I feel like he's poor man's Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins was legit. He was aggressive. Energy was there. Jacoby Myers, he can make all those plays too. However, I don't see the spark and the energy from Jacoby to change this offense. We was talking about coaches. I would say we got to start internally and see if our coaches can adjust before we go out and bring more players in. Our Brady's got to prove that he can get the ball out more than 3 times to one of our targets. So, that's my thought in the back of my mind.
It's a really interesting point, Stevie. And I think when it boils down to it, the most likely outcome is that there's some kind of internal development here, to use a Blue Jays term, when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, whether it's a coaching adjustment, whether they start featuring different guys in different roles. Because the idea of getting Jalen Waddle is frankly a pipe dream. It'd be amazing in theory, but in practice, is it actually something that can happen? Very unlikely.
I think those Saints guys are actually a little more realistic.
Maybe. Yeah. And again, I think the Saints probably are in a little bit different spot than Miami is. Man, they're not paying a quarterback $55 million.
Raiders, Saints, Dolphins all need to be just ripping this thing down to the studs.
Yeah.
So if I'm them, I would want draft picks regardless.
Yeah. I guess it's just like, what are you willing to give up for Chris Olave?
Probably a second or a third. For Shaheed, probably you could get for a little cheaper, but like, I don't know if let's just look at who and like I really like Brandon Beane. I feel like the fan base is being a little unfair to Brandon Beane, but the last couple of draft classes, they're not special. So why not? Who cares if you're giving up a second?
Yeah, I mean, Keon Coleman was a 2nd round pick. Yep. I think you'd swap him for Chris Olave. What about that idea? Could you trade Coleman and
no, you can't.
No.
And I agree with Davis said it last week and Stevie said it last week, and now I'm seeing a lot of people online. So maybe people are watching Broken Table, but I think you got to move Coleman and try Coleman more in the slot. I know some of our commenters even mentioned at Florida State he would be moved around more and would use the middle of the field. And maybe it's like Stevie said, Joe Brady needs to adjust and not have Coleman purely on the outside and let him use the middle of the field more to get more out of him.
Yeah, like I would say that for sure. And, that's where you got to try new things. And that's using your players elsewhere as opposed to going to go get new players to try new things. Let's utilize every test on what we need to do. And what about defense? I don't hear much people online or none of the community talking about, we need safeties or linebackers, because, I mean, it's tough stopping these running teams. And when they got the ball more, our offense is off the field more. So, we got to attack that area of the team also, guys.
I'm glad you brought that up because as I'm watching the Atlanta Falcons look completely inept against the San Francisco 49ers defense that's without tons of quality players, you're thinking, how did Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Michael Penix decimate Buffalo but look garbage against a team that is besieged by injury. How does that add up? And that would be a major concern for me on a number of fronts, because it really didn't add up to me, other than maybe Buffalo's not nearly as good defensively as we may have thought previously.
I think Stevie nailed it with safety. And I thought the same thing watching last night. I just think in the nature of the 24-hour sports culture, are you going to click a wide receivers available at the deadline or safeties available at the deadline? So like the sports culture is going to gravitate us to want to like, oh, what receivers could you get? Also, there's not many corners available. There's not many safeties available, but it appears to be receivers available. But I agree with Stevie. If you need to address one area more than anything on this team, I believe it's the safety position. I will be a little hesitant with corner because I still think, Max Hairston coming back, you hope that gives you some relief. But even the defensive line, you have a good pressure rate, and you have Hoyt coming back, you have Okunjobi coming back. You have guys injured. I think safety is the one position where you've had those two guys. You've had Cole Bishop and you've had Rapp starting all year, and they have been disappointing both in coverage and with missed tackles. So if you can upgrade at safety, sure, but can you upgrade at safety? I think that's a question.
Yeah, and I guess just assimilating a new safety into a defense 8 weeks into the season. Stevie, I mean, I know you didn't play the position, but how would you compare coming into a team in the middle of the year playing a safety position versus a wide receiver position? How similar would that be?
As a safety on the defensive side, it's not hard at all because the see ball, hit ball, or swat ball down, go make the tackle. So it's really easy. It's just about, the coaching staff, and I think that was the difference between the San Francisco 49ers and the Buffalo Bills when watching them teams play against the Falcons. The coaching staff for the 49ers was more aggressive and competitive with their players. They wasn't playing off and trying to read the Drake Londons and Bijan Robinsons. They was competing. So that was the difference, the cushion that they was giving up. It was a crucial fourth down play. And one of the rookies on the 49ers, he played, it was a real cerebral play, but he was playing up close and he was able to make the fourth down stop. And meanwhile, us on the other hand, we was playing off and cushion, not trying to get beat deep. We got to compete more on defense, and that's from the cornerback position.
You look when McDermott was calling plays for this defense, they were creating turnovers, and they were a much better defense. Do you think they maybe need to make a switch and Bobby Babich, hey, you just aren't calling the defense game to game anymore. You're still the coordinator, but we need McDermott to play to his strengths. If McDermott is this great defensive play caller, why not use that again?
You know what? That's a great question, and I feel like they are working together. I wouldn't take it away from Bobby Babich just now because I still see him with influence on that defense. They are trying new things and they're still flying around. However, they just need to adjust a couple things like playing pressure a little bit more on receivers and following guys. We need Christian Benford to follow star receivers and not have our our third strings and fourth strings covering number one receivers just because they're on the opposite side of the field. Babich is actually a really good coach, and they actually had an opportunity to get that turnover still against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep, dropped the interception.
Wasn't exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, you know exactly what it was. So the defense is real disciplined and mature. It's just got to make the plays when they are there every time.
When you, as a receiver, when you see that back in your day, would your eyes sort of light up knowing like, hey, there's a well, maybe not Darrelle Revis because you would burn him anyways. Your eyes probably lit up when you saw Revis either way. But say you have like an elite corner on one side of the field and you're on the other side and it's like, wait, they just have this third round rookie on me. As a receiver, walk us through that.
Yeah, you don't disrespect them, but you're not thinking extra like, okay, what if this guy does this? You don't think about none of that. You just, I know what I'm going to do. And I'm not even going to question whether he's going to stop it or not because he has to prove it first. And that's what I saw a lot of Drake London doing against our Bills. He wasn't thinking about anything, even when Christian Benford was on him. Why? Because all of these guys are used to 7-on-7 and flag football and playing skelly with people playing off. So it was just playing routes versus air, basically. You got to compete and get physical. And Benford is good enough to do that. He just can't be afraid to get thrown through the mud if something happened. It is what it is.
So Bills 4-2 coming off the bye. They've got Carolina. It looks like Bryce Young may miss. He's in a walking boot. That's good news for Buffalo for sure. But the Patriots win again. They're 5-2. The Colts win again. They're 6-1. The top tier in the AFC, Bills and Chiefs clearly still in that top tier. Have either New England or Indianapolis enter the top tier for you?
Well, man, we have to take Indy seriously. I know the Chargers have a ton of injuries, especially on that offensive line. And to me, watching that Colts game yesterday, I just felt bad for Herbert. Because, like, what are they on? Like, their 5th or 6th tackle? And that guy's running for his life and really had no chance. But that Colts offense looks really good. Now, am I going to trust Daniel Jones in a playoff game? I don't think so.
Just hand it off to Jonathan Taylor. No worries.
When I'm watching the Pats, and I know Drake May yesterday set the single season completion record for a Patriots quarterback, passing Tom Brady at like something like 91%. But it is that deep ball. Drake May is the best deep ball passer in the NFL right now. They have a great coach. I still don't think the division's in jeopardy, but the Patriots are lurking. Like, they are seriously lurking.
Well, I think New England's a good team with an extraordinarily easy schedule. Their schedule is a joke. I'd be really surprised if New England didn't win 11 games simply by virtue of some of the teams they're going to play. So they are a threat. I think Buffalo is a superior team to New England, but that doesn't mean
down to
necessarily
minus 190 in the division.
Yeah,
now, so
that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I think if you look at the schedule, it's you're shaking your head like there's a win, there's a win, there's a win, there's a win for New England. It's not because necessarily they're the greatest team on earth, but it's because of their opposition, which frankly is a joke down the stretch, Stevie.
Yeah, they're definitely a threat. You know, you got to call it how it is. And right now they sit in the top of the division. As much as I don't want to say that they're a threat, I'm not ready for them to be a threat right now. It is what it is. And you know, they're making plays and they're not turning the ball over as much as they were. So, yeah, that's making them a real threat in the league when you don't turn the ball over and you can sustain drives.
You know who I feel really bad for are fans of the Dolphins and the Jets because they're staring at a decade plus of utter irrelevance simply because of Josh Allen in Buffalo and Drake May in New England, 2 quarterbacks that will likely lead their teams to 10 plus wins for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, the Jets, good luck. And Miami's paying Tua $55 million to be atrocious. I mean, those two situations are terrible, but that's good news for the Bills and certainly good news for the Patriots because I cannot fathom a situation in which those two teams aren't the cream of the crop in the AFC East for a long time.
Well, to your point of what you just asked of who are we taking the Colts for real? Let's get into the Chiefs. We talked about it last week, and now we finally got to see it in practice. It seems like Mahomes has unlimited options now. Rashee Rice has opened up a ton for everybody else around that team. So, Stevie, last week we were talking about the Chiefs and are they the best team in the NFL? After seeing a week now with Rashee Rice, do you think the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL?
No, I still don't say they're the best team in the NFL. I'm going to stick with Philadelphia Eagles on the NFC side. And on the AFC side, right now, the Colts are saying that they're the best. You know, that's what it's showing. So I'm going to stick with those guys. Although the Chiefs are hitting on all cylinders, everybody's looking like they're coming back healthy and locked in. So they're a huge threat, a more serious threat than the Patriots. But I can't give them the best team just yet.
There's a lot of crazy stats. A lot of crazy stats from that game yesterday with the Chiefs. And so I think the craziest is that they had as many first downs as the Raiders had plays run.
That's insane.
Have you ever heard of that before?
No,
I mean, that's
insane.
like there's no way that's ever happened. 30 first downs to 30 plays for the Raiders, which goes to show how inept the Raiders are, but it also goes to show how efficient the Chiefs are. And I mean, yeah, they're loaded at receiver and tight end, and they have Mahomes, and they have a great defense.
But now go
that
back to
team's
week
going to be
two,
tough to beat.
Week 2, where we were talking about, do they have enough weapons? And now how dumb does that look? Like, I guess
Got healthy and got unsuspended.
Yes.
That helps.
I'm still.
Raiders are terrible though.
Yeah,
they're bad.
Which I didn't see coming at all. I assumed competent coach, competent quarterback, they would be a much better team. But Gino looks awful.
Yeah, the Raiders, they don't take shots. I was watching them play. They don't take chances at all. You know, they're just one of those teams that think they can be perfect, like the play call or the script. That don't happen in games. The script is usually gone after the first 9 or 12 plays, and they're still like reading. Gino's not, you know, he's not causing any chaos back there. So, like, it's kind of a skewed game for me to call the Chiefs the best after beating a team like the Raiders, who only got 1 or 2 threats on their team, and that's a rookie running back and their tight end Bowers.
Yeah, Bowers isn't even playing anyway.
Yeah.
So like, they're just
play. Yeah,
The only chaos that Geno Smith causes is to his own team by throwing interceptions. I mean, it's ugly there with the Raiders. You could scratch them off. They're not doing anything this year.
All right, let's move on now. Earlier today, I took it to the streets. We got a pair of Monday Nighters. Let's get in to the Lions and Bucks on the streets right now. Why aren't you here? You look like you're why aren't you here? Buddy, move aside. All right, what do we got? Two of the best teams in the NFC are going head-to-head tonight on Monday Night Football, so we're taking to the streets to do a little same-game parlay your way. Oh, yeah. Oh. An even worse throw than mine. We're going to make a little same-game parlay your way on FanDuel. First of all, Bucks Lions, who you got in the game?
Lions.
How come the Lions?
Jared Goff.
Just Goff? Okay, so now we're going to go Goff's yards then. What do you think is pass yards? Your way, you can adjust it any which way you want.
I think he'll get 200.
Okay, so we got Goff 200. What else do you want to pair with that?
Ooh, anything on here?
Yeah, anything. You can go Amon-Ra. You can pick his yards. You can pick Baker. It's always fun to go with the quarterbacks, right? So, like, why not throw Baker on there?
Exactly.
What do you want Baker's yards at? Yeah, 200's a good number. Your buddy knows what's up. Hold on. Why aren't you here? You look like you're why aren't you here? Buddy, move aside. All right. What do we got? You know what you're talking about. We got Baker 2.
All right, we're going Baker 200 yards.
You sticking with his Goff pick, or is that trash? Get him out. Okay.
No, I'll leave that.
Okay. What about touchdowns? Baker's going to throw some tutties.
I'll give him 2.
Okay, 2 tutties for Baker. What about Goff?
None.
None for okay, we're not touching Goff. Okay. And then do you stand by, what about the game then? Bucks or Lions?
Lions.
Okay, so we're sticking with it. All right. Thank you for jumping in. Your buddy clearly just wasn't ready for the
He wasn't
moment.
having it, eh?
Buddy, when the lights are bright, some people are born with it. You clearly are. You clearly are not. Thanks, fellas. You guys want to make a catch? Well done. Quarterback Baker Mayfield, MVP candidate. Same thing. We can adjust him any which way. What do you think?
Bring it down.
Well, you're bringing him down. How come?
I don't know, just doing the opposite.
You're just zagging. It's opposite day. You are
Yeah.
George Costanza opposite day.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of every guy you've ever met.
Anything else you want to do? Maybe a little Amon-Ra St. Brown catches. Maybe move that to like 5 or 6.
Yep.
Which
yep.
one? Which one?
6.
Okay, but it's opposite day. So do we like that? So maybe shouldn't you move that lower?
Nope, no,
Well,
we're switching it up again.
You're going opposite of the opposite.
Yeah, opposite of the opposite.
You Costanza'd my Costanza. Okay, so the streets were active. They're hyped for Lions and Bucks. And how could you not be? Because this is arguably the 2 best teams in the NFC. And this is an unreal game tonight. I'm very excited. Like, I'm kind of shocked that the spread is so high. I know Tampa is really, really injured, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, AK, going into tonight?
Oh, I can't wait for this one. It gets 2 offensive firepowers going toe-to-toe. You've Goff on one side, Baker Mayfield, who's emerged as a legit MVP candidate. I love watching the Lions always. They have so much firepower. And it looks like the Bucks are getting healthier at receiver to some extent, but still Bucky Irving's out. We're going to see a lot of Rachaad White tonight for Tampa, but this has just been a great story. The Bucks have been really resilient in spite of dealing with so much adversity on the offensive side of the ball, and it doesn't seem to matter who Baker Mayfield is throwing the ball to. They're producing offense, and I'm curious to see who steps up tonight for them.
Well, you sort of stepped on my best bet there. Not stepped on. You set up appropriately. Rachaad White, the rush receiving yards, the line's a little low. Since Bucky Irving's been out, he's been kind of right around what that line is. He's also scoring touchdowns. I don't hate throwing him with a touchdown too, but I feel like maybe even just the receiving yards if I had to pick one, but I'm going to do the combo rush receiving yards for that. What do you want, AK?
I'm on Jamison Williams, my man. My man JMO.
Love him on the fast track.
Indoors, JMO rips. And he's a guy who's had some big games this year, some quiet games this year. I think Detroit's going to have to utilize his speed downfield. I think JMO has a big game. We're playing him 50 plus, Stevie.
Hey, look, the Buccaneers are the hot boys. They was where the Lions were last year. They got that aura and that energy. I feel like the Detroit Lions at home are going to dominate. So I'm looking at some nice parlays. I'm going to get Goff with 225 yards plus, and I'm going Amon-Ra with 70. So I'm going to double up on that one and go with the guys in Detroit. I'm rocking with Amon-Ra and Goff.
We're all correlated.
Yes,
I like it.
I
like
also,
it.
Stevie, I love that bet. I will probably do the same thing as soon as we finish taping, which is right now. So play us out.
Hey, look, I got my fatigue on, man, because it's time to go to war. Buffalo Bills Mafia, strap up because it's going to be a hell of a season for the rest of this season, guys. Stay tuned for next week, and it's The Broken Table. One love, and go Bills for life.